Hello, this is Barbara Kolm again, and I am here with Matt Kibbe, who is the president of Free the People. Matt and I know each other for, 20 plus years.
Yeah, we shouldn't say.
Yeah, well,
It's been a while.
It's been a while. But most importantly, Matt is also a senior fellow at the Austrian Economics Center, and he is a great economist. He's a great speaker, even better, and he's also recently a film producer.
Yes.
And Matt, tell us, what are you all doing? I mean, if I said what institutions you've all founded and run,
Yeah.
I think we would sit there for the next half an hour, but we want to get to your work.
Well, the thing that we're so passionate about, my wife Terry and I started Free the People now, I think like 7 years ago, 8 years ago.
Yeah.
Time goes fast. And the idea was to take the ideas and values, the logic of economics, libertarian values, and translate them into stories that could actually reach young people outside of our philosophical bubble. We're very much looking to reach, we call them the liberty curious.
Mhm.
And it was sort of based on this understanding that most people don't think about the world through the lens of Austrian economics. It's a radical understatement. And they don't really process the world through logic at all. They process the world through their emotions. So we wanted to find a way to teach economics and turn people on to ideas, but do it through their heart and not just their head. And because our audience, our target audience is young people, they're not reading books. They're not even reading articles so much anymore. They're consuming video content. And not just podcasts, but documentaries. We're producing a lot of comedy now for that very reason. I'm bullish on the ability of comedies to beat authoritarianism.
You actually ran a panel yesterday with two very prominent comedians.
Yes.
On exactly that topic. So do you think this will help get new people attracted to our ideas?
I do. You see so many universities in the United States and probably everywhere else have been captured by this sort of woke authoritarian elite. But so many young people have the opportunity now. I was talking about comedians, but they go to Joe Rogan instead.
Mhm.
And Joe Rogan will have a substantial academic who probably isn't allowed to teach
Speak
at
up.
Harvard.
Yeah.
Or if he does speak up, he gets canceled, he gets fired. And that's what we talked about last night with Rob Schneider and Andrew Doyle, both sort of famously coming out of the closet and acknowledging that they disagree with the speech police, which, in Rob's case, he's like, I don't get as many movie contracts as I used to. But the alternative media and the ability of comedians and podcasters and independent filmmakers, it's very difficult to stop that. It's an open system, even with all the censorship that we have going on, not just in our country, even with the government telling YouTube and Facebook and everybody else what they can and can't do. It's a much broader platform for all of us, for our ideas. And if we believe in markets,
Which we do.
and we believe in the ability of people to figure stuff out for themselves and the wisdom of crowds, this is the place we should be.
But you're actually also a podcast host. You host the show, the Blaze TV show, TV on Liberty.
Yeah.
So what topics do you cover there?
So it's almost everything. I do a lot of economics because that's my background, and I really inspired by Ron Paul name dropping Easter eggs like Ludwig von Mises and Friedrich Hayek and Murray Rothbard. So we talk a lot about economics, but I also talk to a lot of comedians, even musicians and cultural critics. It's honestly whatever interests me. And I'm the kind of the token libertarian at Blaze. It's more of a conservative channel. I love them because, first of all, I'm never censored. They never tell me what to say and what not to say. And even here at Freedom Fest, I've recorded some tremendous conversations, including with Rob Schneider, which was freaking hysterical. He was so tired. He was punch drunk. So he just basically did stand up for me in a way. So
Wow.
let him go.
Well, that is
Yeah.
wonderful. But let me come back because you just mentioned that you're an economist by background, and we have been working on that front for many, many years.
Yes.
You've been a speaker at the Free Market Roadshow. I don't know. I think ever since the first year, 17
think
years
that's
ago.
true, yeah.
Yes, 17 years ago, you and your wife Terry have been traveling with us not only across Europe but also through the States and to many other places in the world. And we have had great discussions, but you are also
And some road stories.
and some, yeah, even more. So I think if we start doing that,
Yeah,
reporting, maybe we should run a series on that.
I think what happens on the road show stays on the road show.
Okay, well then we will have to bring all the other people
Yes.
to the road show
Yeah, yeah.
to see what is happening there. But what I was actually going to ask you, you're also a best-selling author, and I remember very well your first book, which was "Don't Hurt People," and don't. And I remember very well how this went viral.
Yeah.
You know, people just said this was the time when the Tea Party movement was going up.
Yeah.
But you literally wrote a book where you said this is the recipe of how you can run a country, how it can be where you have free individuals and free enterprises.
Yeah.
So, can you give us a little bit of background?
You know my joke, like, don't hurt people and don't take their stuff, was my joking but not so joking way of imagining that Adam Smith was on Twitter and he had to tweet out the entire theory of moral sentiments, all 800 pages, in a tweet. And that's basically what the book is about. It basically sums up our entire moral philosophy. And that became a New York Times bestseller. But these are all things that your mom taught you, right?
Yeah.
It's like this. There's no like profoundly original insight in this, but these are the values that we sort of presume when we count on markets to work. And the entire basis of Adam Smith's theory of moral sentiments was that this is why markets can work, because there's these values that are sort of built into people that thrive under freedom. But like fast forward to like honestly, I think the T-shirt that says "Don't hurt people and don't take their stuff" is more important than the book. And,
For many who don't read.
and I got to tell you, like, no matter where I wear that, I always get someone coming up saying, "I love your shirt," and it's not libertarians saying that. It's not Austrian economists saying that. It's just people that are like,
Well, Austrian economists don't wear shirts; they
No,
wear ties.
that's true. And I've had a friend wear that shirt at a big Black Lives Matter rally, presumably quite left of center. And he said, "I've never gotten so many compliments on that shirt."
Wow.
So if we can take really complex ideas and translate them into something that's so common sense, I think that's if you'll pardon the pun, it's a gateway drug to saying, "Tell me more about that." Like what? There must be more to that, because what I'm getting from pop culture is either sort of left woke authoritarianism or right-wing nationalism, and I just want to live my life as long as
We want to be free
I'm
and
not
independent. Yeah.
hurt people like myself. So I'm really optimistic. We could spend hours talking about how pessimistic we should be about the state of the world, but I think there's not only power in the ideas, but there's power in the democratization of everything. And that's why governments are trying to censor us, because they're panicked. They're like, wow, those ideas are so dangerous, people might actually listen. They might get turned on by that stuff.
Yeah, might have their own ideas and
They might think
don't
for
vote for
themselves,
us anymore.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, talking about voting and also you've been in politics. Actually, you were involved actively. You were working at the Hill and have seen it from the inside. And you have also advised and worked with senators, various very prominent senators. That I had the privilege to meet via you and via your organizations. So what is your take on America right now, or on politics in the U.S.?
It's funny, like it is absolutely true that we have a two-party system in this country. We call it the duopoly, because they really don't like dissidents either within their party or outside of their party. Third parties have a virtually impossible time functioning right now. We'll see whether or not RFK Jr. is able to break that. But it's the rules are stacked against an independent candidate that would actually want to run. That might be a libertarian, it might be a green, it might be RFK Jr. But even within the parties, like the more interesting characters in the Democratic Party, someone like Tulsi Gabbard actually ends up leaving the Democratic Party because the process of her running for president was so rigged against her, because she was a dissident on many of the party's ideologies. They did the same thing to Ron Paul when he was running for president as a Republican. I continue to believe that at some point the system breaks open. Because it's a cartel. And it's a cartel on purpose. But I think so many American voters are very dissatisfied. And they're looking at this guy who's clearly struggling with dementia, our president, Joe Biden, clinging to power, insisting that he's going to continue to run. And no person with any common sense is like, surely we can do better than this. So it's kind of like it looks like a tragedy unfolding. I will say that this is American inside baseball, but I will say it's interesting that the Democrats forced a debate so early. I think this is historically unprecedented. They quite typically hold debates after the conventions when the parties have actually nominated their candidates. This was just a debate between the sitting president and Donald Trump. They wouldn't let RFK on, even though he clearly qualified based on their own criteria. I think the Democrats are scrambling to figure out if and how they might replace Joe Biden with somebody else. But it becomes very difficult because, the ballots are already set in a number of states, and they face all sorts of problems. If they do replace Biden, do they have to replace her with Kamala Harris, who's even more unpopular than he is? And if they don't do that, will they be accused of being racist and hoisted on their own petard? So as someone that doesn't do politics anymore, I'm just going to sit back, get some popcorn,
lean back and enjoy, or
see
not
what
enjoy.
happens.
Yeah.
I'm not sure. We'll see who Trump chooses as his VP. There are some interesting choices like Vivek Ramaswamy, maybe even Tulsi Gabbard. That would be interesting if it happens. I'm not hopeful, but who knows?
Yeah. Well, coming really to academia and to what we share. I mean, the love for Hayek, and the Road to Serfdom turned 80 years this year, actually, and where Hayek warned us on centrally or against central planning, and we see that in Europe. Brussels is only central planned and nothing else.
Right.
And but what Hayek also said that we can only change society from top down via the elites. And I remember very well, he once gave a talk, I think it was not a roadshow, but one of our galas. And he said, no, you can't, you have to do this bottom up as well. Now with modern technology, with the internet in place, we can also do that. Each and every one of us can do that. Can you elaborate a little bit on that?
So obviously, if Hayek was here today, he would absolutely be fascinated by the disintermediation of technology and how it actually creates a marketplace for ideas and free thinking. So I think he would probably agree with me today. He was working with the tools they had at the time, and the elites were the megaphones that would drive ideas. Now it's everybody. And you can create your own curriculum. You can go on a subversive podcast like Joe Rogan and listen to a serious intellectual who was canceled by the elites because specifically because he was being subversive, questioning their ideology. So I think it's both. It's top down and bottom up. I tend to be a little pessimistic about the state of American universities. But the competition, I just had this conversation with the comedian Andrew Doyle, who was a professor before he became a comedian. And he's like, we have to save the universities. And my argument is we have to have competition from all of these independent podcasts and all of these intellectuals who are now freelancing. Like they're making a better living speaking their mind than they did sort of cloistered in their oppressive university settings. so there's a lot of competition there. But I still like, you could look at all the craziness going on in our politics, but I very much believe in the wisdom of crowds.
So the wisdom of crowds, and you did an interview, or actually you touched upon liberalism or libertarianism in the times of Trump.
Yes.
What kind of libertarianism or freedom is there? I mean, we see ahead of us, trade barriers, protectionism,
Yeah.
and all those things that you and I probably don't like,
Yeah.
approve of. So, what is your?
Well, there's like,
How can we fight that?
the good news is that Trumpism is a personality-driven thing. He's a very strong personality, obviously. I don't think it's a philosophical shift in American politics. I think it just sort of reflects some of its instincts. At least that's what I hope. It's fascinating to me. Like I could come down a litany of things that Trump disappointed me on, starting with lockdowns, starting with trillions of dollars in new spending that has now exploded into rampant inflation in our country. That's not just Biden. Trump started a lot of those policies. There's other things he did well, like Neil Gorsuch was a godsend as a Supreme Court justice. Maybe the others not so much. But he also, like, there's this interesting competition for libertarian votes in this country. Maybe Europeans haven't seen this, but both RFK Jr. and Donald Trump actually spoke at the Libertarian National Convention.
Oh,
Historically unprecedented. And I think RFK started this bidding war because he was speaking. He spoke at Freedom Fest. He's going to be here again this year. I saw him speak at something called Pork Fest, which is a big campaign trip for libertarians in New Hampshire, and they're all free state projects. And in New Hampshire, pandering to libertarians, RFK gave the most libertarian speech I've ever heard a real candidate give, other than an actual libertarian candidate who never got traction. So both Trump and RFK Jr. are making promises to libertarians, hoping that at the margin they can peel us off. If two of the three major candidates are bidding for ideas, it gives me a little bit of hope. It means there's a constituency that they want, and they're willing to say libertarian things. Now, do they do libertarian things? You've got to ask that question about every
measure
politician.
them by their results.
All you can do is hope.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, final question. If you have a young individual, a young person who is interested in our ideas, what kind of books would you recommend this person to read? In other words, what took you, or by what were you taken and drawn into this whole idea of free markets? And
you mentioned Road to Serfdom. I sort of half-jokingly sometimes recommend Thomas Sowell's Knowledge and Decisions if you want to read Hayek, because you gotta sort of dip your toe in the water. Hayek can be quite dense. English was his second language. My gateway drug was a tiny little novelette by Ayn Rand, Anthem, which I learned about reading the liner notes on a rock album by Rush. And I read Rand and I devoured it, and she eventually told me to read Ludwig von Mises in Capitalism, the Unknown Ideal. And so I found the Austrians, and I found the entire classical liberal tradition. But I think you start with simpler stuff, The Law by Bastiat. I think it's more interesting to try to boil substantial ideas down into very consumable things. And then when you get turned on, you can dig a little deeper.
And then what you do right now with all the videos and podcasts, you drill them down, you burn them down. Really understandable.
I really do believe, and this is a phenomenon I first noticed with Ron Paul when he was giving presidential speeches, which for him was a cultural platform. Was he really running to win office, or was he trying to turn people onto these ideas? And he would drop the name of an Austrian economist, and by
as does Millet these days, constantly.
And that's beautiful, because young people who love Millet, they love his authenticity, they love his brashness, and he's turning this whole new generation on to like Murray Rothbard or something. But it's a cultural phenomenon that allows people to whatever their professor's teaching them, they're like, but I heard about that other guy, so they can go create that for themselves. I do think video is essential to this project. If it's just books, we're going to talk to ourselves. As someone that read all the books and loves the books, but we gotta think expansively.
Well, Matt, thank you very much. This was super cool, in other words. And thanks for indulging us and for taking the time and for working the way you do, the hard way you do, because it's not easy to live out of a suitcase, travel constantly,
Yes.
and but still enjoy and promote our ideas. Thank you very much, Matt.
Thank you.